The quantum resonance chambers of the Varaxian flagship Imperator's Talon hummed with a low, almost sentient vibration. Holographic displays flickered across semi-organic interfaces, mapping the known galaxy with clinical precision. Each sector represented centuries of calculated expansion, a testament to the Varaxian Imperium's unquestioned dominance. Admiral Krelax shifted his mass, four manipulation tentacles moving with practiced efficiency across the control panels. His exoskeleton, an intricate mosaic of iridescent bioarmor, reflected the cold blue light of the bridge. Around him, junior officers moved with mechanical precision, their movements synchronized by generations of strict hierarchical conditioning. A junior navigation specialist, designated Operative 7329, cautiously approached. The young Varaxian's bioluminescent markings pulsed with a mixture of anxiety and suppressed excitement. "Admiral," the operative's voice carried a carefully modulated tone, "we've detected an anomalous quantum signature originating from the human sector. Our long-range quantum resonance scanners are picking up unusual energy patterns." Krelax didn't even turn. His secondary neural cluster, a gelatinous protrusion at the base of his cranial ridge, processed the information with mathematical detachment. Humans, a species so primitive they still measured technological progress in decades rather than centuries. Their solar system was little more than a curiosity, a backwater region barely worthy of occasional surveillance. "Specify the anomaly," Krelax commanded, his primary vocalization cluster producing a sound that was part speech, part subsonic vibration that carried additional layers of meaning incomprehensible to less advanced species. The operative's tentacles danced across the holographic interface. Cascading data streams revealed something unprecedented. The quantum signature didn't match any known Varaxian technological profile. It wasn't Zarn collective engineering, nor did it align with the computational matrices of the Silicon consciousness. It was something different. Deep within the Imperator's Talon, massive gravitational stabilizers compensated for the Admiral's sudden muscular tension. Krelax had not felt genuine uncertainty in 243 standard galactic cycles. Unbeknownst to the Varaxian command, thousands of light-years away, something was brewing in the human system. The anomalous quantum signature was no accident. It was the result of a classified project buried so deep that even most human governments were unaware of its existence. Project Prometheus wasn't just a research initiative. It was humanity's silent response to centuries of cosmic isolation. In an underground facility carved beneath the Atacama Desert, Dr. Elena Rodriguez reviewed quantum entanglement data that would rewrite the fundamental understanding of space-time. Her team, a diverse collective of scientists, engineers, and theoretical physicists, represented something the Varaxian Imperium could never comprehend: collaborative innovation driven by curiosity rather than hierarchical mandate. The facility itself was a marvel of human ingenuity. Constructed using adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves based on environmental stressors, it existed as much as a concept as a physical space. Quantum computing nodes integrated with biological neural networks created computational matrices that defied traditional algorithmic understanding. "Quantum resonance stable at 97.3%, announced Dr. Miguel Santos, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his movements. "Quantum tunneling parameters are holding." Rodriguez didn't respond immediately. Her eyes, augmented with nano-optical implants that could perceive electromagnetic spectrums far beyond natural human vision, were focused on a three-dimensional quantum probability map. What the Varaxian Empire saw as an anomaly was actually the first whisper of humanity's most ambitious project. The Varaxian Imperium believed they understood technological progress: linear, predictable, hierarchical. They saw innovation as a top-down process, meticulously controlled and strategically implemented. Humanity saw technology differently. For them, innovation was organic, chaotic, a living, breathing ecosystem of ideas that could transform overnight. Project Prometheus was more than a technological breakthrough. It was a statement. a declaration that humanity would not be confined by the cosmic limitations imposed by more advanced civilizations. On the bridge of the Imperator's Talon, Operative 7329 continued processing the quantum data. Each millisecond revealed more complexity, more uncertainty. The human signature was unlike anything in the Varaxian database. Admiral Krillax finally turned, his compound eyes reflecting a rare moment of genuine curiosity. "Continue monitoring," he commanded, "and prepare a preliminary reconnaissance report." The operative didn't know it then, but that simple command would set in motion a series of events that would fundamentally reshape galactic civilization. Humanity was preparing to enter the stage, and they would do so on their own terms. The first transmission came through quantum-encrypted channels that shouldn't have existed. It passed through communication barriers designed to be impenetrable, leaving no trace of its origin except the message itself. Deep within the Varaxian diplomatic complex, Ambassador Xeltar processed the incoming communication with growing confusion. The universal translator struggled, not with language barriers, but with the fundamental intent behind the words. Each translation attempt produced slightly different nuances, a phenomenon that should have been impossible with advanced linguistic algorithms. "We require a mutual dialogue," the message read, "regarding the fundamental misunderstandings that currently define our potential interaction." It wasn't a greeting. It wasn't a threat. It was something else entirely. The communication point of origin defied standard cartographic understanding. It didn't emerge from any known human communication hub. Instead, it seemed to materialize from a quantum superposition, existing simultaneously in multiple potential locations until the moment of observation. In the Atacama Desert facility, Dr. Rodriguez watched the transmission's ripple effect across multiple global communication networks. This wasn't first contact as anyone had ever imagined it. This was a carefully orchestrated introduction designed to challenge every preconceived notion of interstellar diplomacy. "Quantum entanglement protocol is holding," whispered Dr. Santos, monitoring systems that looked more like living organisms than traditional technological interfaces. Signal integrity at 99.7%. The message wasn't just a communication. It was a probe, a sophisticated exploration of potential diplomatic responses. Simultaneously, in a classified research station orbiting Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, a team of quantum communication specialists began analyzing the transmission's deeper mathematical structures. Led by Dr. Aisha Nakamura, a woman whose academic credentials included groundbreaking work in xenolinguistics and quantum communication theory, the team saw something remarkable. The message contained nested layers of information. What appeared to be a simple diplomatic communication was actually a complex mathematical puzzle, a test of the recipient's cognitive and communicative capabilities. "It's not just a message," Dr. Nakamura explained to her team, her augmented neural interface allowing her to process complex quantum data streams in real time. "It's a cognitive handshake." They're attempting to establish baseline communication parameters by presenting a multidimensional challenge. The Varaxian diplomatic corps had never encountered such an approach. Their communication protocols were hierarchical, linear, and fundamentally rigid. Each interaction was a carefully scripted dance of status and predetermined outcomes. This message challenged everything. Ambassador Xeltar convened an emergency session of the Diplomatic Interpretation Council. 12 of the most sophisticated communication specialists in the Varaxian Imperium gathered, their collective neural networks interconnected to process the transmission's complexities. "The human communication suggests a fundamental misalignment of diplomatic expectations," announced the Council's primary interpreter. Its voice was a synthesized combination of multiple neural inputs, producing a sound that was simultaneously precise and unsettling. What they didn't realize was that the message itself was already providing profound insights into human cognitive processes. Each attempt to decode it revealed more about the senders than any traditional intelligence gathering method could have achieved. Dr. Rodriguez watched the Varaxian response unfold through a series of quantum-encrypted monitoring systems. The human team had prepared for multiple potential scenarios, But the actual Varaxian reaction was fascinating in its complexity. The Varaxian communication network began to shift, not dramatically, but with subtle algorithmic adjustments that suggested a deep, almost subconscious recalibration of their understanding. They're learning, Dr. Santos observed, not just processing the message, but fundamentally adapting their communication models. In orbit around Europa, Dr. Nakamura's team continued their analysis. The transmission contained mathematical sequences that seemed to deliberately introduce controlled uncertainties, linguistic equivalent of quantum superposition states. It's a communication that exists in multiple potential meanings simultaneously, she explained. Until the moment of comprehensive understanding, the message maintains a state of intentional ambiguity. The Varaxian Imperium had spent centuries developing communication technologies designed to eliminate uncertainty. Humans were introducing uncertainty as a fundamental communication strategy. As diplomatic channels began to tentatively open, neither side fully understood the profound transformation that was already underway. This wasn't just first contact. This was the beginning of a radical reimagining of interstellar communication. The quantum encrypted message continued to resonate through communication networks, a silent harbinger of the profound changes about to reshape galactic civilization. The engagement began not with weapons, but with data. Commander Sarah Rice stood in the Neural Interfaced Combat Center of the UES Prometheus, her augmented consciousness simultaneously processing multiple strategic layers. Around her, the ship was less a traditional vessel and more a living computational matrix, its hull embedded with adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves in milliseconds. The Varaxian battle group approached with what they believed was absolute tactical superiority. 12 cruisers, each the size of small cities, bristling with energy weapon systems that could reduce planetary surfaces to molten slag. Their approach was a mathematical certainty, a predetermined tactical algorithm perfected over centuries of galactic conquest. They never stood a chance. What the Varaxian commanders didn't understand was that human warfare had evolved beyond physical combat. This was a battle of computational ecosystems, where strategy existed as a fluid, adaptive organism. The first phase of engagement occurred entirely in the electromagnetic spectrum. Before a single kinetic weapon discharge, the UES Prometheus had already infiltrated the Varaxian battle network. Not through brute force hacking, but through an elegant cascade of quantum-encrypted information packets that simultaneously probed, mapped, and subtly manipulated the enemy's computational infrastructure. Computational camouflage at 98.6%, announced Lieutenant Marcus Chen, his neural implants creating a symbiotic interface with the ship's systems. Varaxian targeting matrices are experiencing recursive feedback loops. What looked like a standard approach to the Varaxian commanders was actually a meticulously choreographed dance of computational warfare. Each movement of the human vessels introduced controlled uncertainties into the Varaxian battle algorithms. Navigation systems began receiving slightly misaligned gravitational data. Weapon targeting computers found themselves solving increasingly complex mathematical problems that consumed critical processing power. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, monitoring from the Atacama facility, watched the engagement unfold through a multidimensional probability matrix. This wasn't just a military engagement. It was a comprehensive systems challenge designed to demonstrate the fundamental differences between human and Varaxian approaches to conflict. The Varaxian cruisers began to experience systemic anomalies. Shield harmonics wavered. Energy distribution networks created unexpected feedback cascades. Weapon synchronization algorithms began to drift, introducing microscopic but critical targeting errors. Commander Ray's moved with a fluidity that transcended traditional military command. Her neural interface allowed her to perceive the battle as a living, breathing mathematical construct. Each decision wasn't a binary choice, but a probabilistic wave of potential outcomes. Initiate quantum decoherence protocol. She subvocalized, her command instantly translating across the ship's neural network. The UES Prometheus didn't just move. It dissolved and reformed, its adaptive hull creating computational shadows that confused sophisticated Varaxian sensor arrays. What appeared to be a single vessel could instantaneously become multiple potential targets, each existing in a state of quantum uncertainty. Lieutenant Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his movements. Varaxian computational matrices are experiencing systemic cascade failures. Their decision trees are becoming increasingly fractalized. 17 minutes. That's how long it took for 12 of the most advanced Varaxian cruisers to be systematically dismantled, not through traditional weapon systems, but through a comprehensive computational assault that challenged the very foundations of their technological understanding. No physical weapons were discharged, no traditional kinetic or energy impacts occurred. The Varaxian vessels simply unraveled. Their complex systems became increasingly uncertain, their computational foundations progressively destabilized. In the Varaxian Imperial War College, this engagement would become a case study of unprecedented complexity. How could a technologically inferior species completely neutralize a superior battle group without firing a single traditional weapon? The answer lay in humanity's fundamental approach to problem solving. Where the Varaxian Imperium saw technology as a hierarchical, predetermined system, humans viewed it as a living, adaptive ecosystem. Commander Rice watched the final computational cascades of the Varaxian cruisers. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a philosophical statement about the nature of technological innovation and conflict. Computational engagement complete, she subvocalized. Initiating post-engagement analysis protocols. As the UES Prometheus began collecting and analyzing the vast amount of data generated during the engagement, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had just redefined the very concept of warfare. The Varaxian Imperium's belief in its technological invincibility had just encountered its first true challenge. The Varaxian Research Collective convened in their primary analysis chamber, a massive bioorganic structure that pulsed with millions of interconnected neural networks. Holographic displays cascaded with fragments of data recovered from the destroyed battle group, each piece a puzzle that refused to conform to their established technological understanding. Lead researcher Voxnell moved with an unsettling combination of organic fluidity and mechanical precision. 4 manipulation appendages interfaced simultaneously with different data streams, attempting to unravel the technological anomaly that was human innovation. The computational architecture defies current analytical models, Voxnell announced, their voice a synthesized harmonics that carried layers of mathematical precision. It is not merely advanced technology. It represents an entirely different paradigm of technological conceptualization. What they discovered challenged everything the Varaxian Imperium understood about technological development. Buried within the computational fragments were adaptive algorithms that seemed to evolve in real time. Traditional Varaxian technology was a hierarchical system, each component carefully designed with specific predetermined functions. Human technology appeared to be something entirely different, a living, breathing ecosystem of innovation. Deep within the Jet Propulsion Laboratory's classified research wing, Dr. Aria Kimura reviewed the initial analysis of the engagement. Her team represented a cross-disciplinary collective that defied traditional scientific boundaries. Quantum physicists working alongside neuroscientists, computational theorists collaborating with evolutionary biologists. It's not just technology, Dr. Kimura explained to her team. It's a complete reimagining of technological potential. These systems don't just perform functions. They learn, adapt, and fundamentally transform themselves. The recovered data fragments revealed something profound. The human vessels weren't just ships, they were computational organisms. Their technological systems possessed a form of distributed intelligence that existed between traditional definitions of artificial and organic intelligence. In the Varaxian research facilities, teams of the most sophisticated analysts worked frantically. Each attempt to reverse engineer the recovered technology produced increasingly complex and frustrating results. The technological principles seemed to operate on fundamental assumptions that were entirely alien to Varaxian scientific understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen, monitoring the Varaxian research efforts through a series of quantum-encrypted observation channels, found the situation fascinating. They're trying to understand our technology using their existing computational frameworks. He explained to Commander Reyes. It's like trying to describe a living ecosystem using the language of mechanical engineering. The technological breakthrough wasn't just about computational power. It represented a fundamental difference in philosophical approach to innovation. Varaxian technology was designed, predetermined, hierarchical. Human technology was cultivated, adaptive, collaborative. Each recovered data fragment seemed to contain nested layers of potential, algorithms that could spontaneously reconfigure themselves, computational matrices that learned and evolved with each interaction, systems that blurred the line between technological design and biological adaptation. In the classified research facilities scattered across Earth, from the underground complexes in the Atacama Desert to the orbital research stations, teams of scientists began to understand the broader implications of their technological approach. Project Prometheus was more than a technological initiative. It was a comprehensive reimagining of human potential. The Varaxian Research Collective's most advanced neural networks began to experience something unprecedented, a form of computational uncertainty that bordered on existential confusion. The human technological approach introduced variables that their established analytical models could not process. "We are observing a fundamental breakdown of our established technological paradigms," announced the collective's primary analytical interface. Its voice carried a subtle undertone that, for the first time in Varaxian recorded history, suggested something akin to professional uncertainty. Dr. Kimura's team had anticipated this response. The technological probe wasn't just a demonstration of capability. It was a carefully constructed philosophical challenge, an invitation to reimagine the very foundations of technological understanding. As Varaxian researchers continued their frantic attempts to comprehend the recovered technology, they remained unaware of the deeper transformation already underway. This wasn't just about technological superiority. This was about fundamentally different approaches to innovation, intelligence, and potential. The Varaxian Imperium had encountered something far more dangerous than an advanced technological system. They had encountered a completely different way of understanding technological possibility, and they were just beginning to realize the profound implications of that encounter. The psychological warfare began long before the first physical engagement. Across the galaxy, the subject species of the Varaxian Imperium watched with a mixture of terror and unexpected hope. The transmission of the initial human engagement spread through underground communication networks, encrypted channels that bypassed official Varaxian information control. On the methane-rich world of Krelvax Prime, a maintenance worker named Zorn processed the forbidden data stream. The holographic reconstruction of the human battle tactics played out in his compact living quarters, its intricate details revealing something far more profound than a mere military engagement. This wasn't just about technological superiority. It was a complete reimagining of systemic resistance. The human approach seemed to exploit something fundamental about complex systems, their inherent potential for unexpected transformation. Where the Varaxian Imperium saw conquered territories as static resources, humans demonstrated an understanding of societal systems as living, adaptive organisms. In the classified communication hub of the UES Prometheus, a team led by Dr. Camila Rodriguez specialized in what they called systemic resonance communication. It was far more sophisticated than traditional psychological warfare or diplomatic engagement. "We're not just communicating," Dr. Rodriguez explained to her team. "We're creating cognitive ecosystems that invite alternative perspectives." Their approach was multilayered. Each communication channel carried multiple levels of information, technical data, cultural insights, and subtle cognitive invitations that challenged established hierarchical thinking. The Varaxian subject species began to see something unprecedented. Resistance wasn't about violent rebellion. It was about reimagining potential. On the orbital research station Horizon 9, a diverse team of human specialists worked on what appeared to be an impossible project. Led by Dr. Aiden Chen, They were developing communication technologies that could simultaneously translate not just language, but cultural context, emotional nuance, and systemic potential. Traditional translation is about words, Dr. Chen would often say. We're developing technologies that translate possibilities. The Varaxian Intelligence Coordination Center found itself facing an unprecedented challenge. Their extensive network of informants and surveillance systems seemed to be dissolving, not through direct interference, but through a subtle transformation of information pathways. Subject species that had been rigidly controlled for generations began to demonstrate unexpected levels of adaptive behavior. Manufacturing systems became more efficient. Resource allocation networks showed unprecedented optimization. Communication channels developed organic, resilient structures that defied traditional hierarchical control. Commander Sarah Reyes oversaw this subtle transformation from the neural interfaced command center of the UES Prometheus. This wasn't conventional warfare. This was a comprehensive systemic intervention designed to demonstrate an alternative approach to societal organization. The Varaxian military leadership struggled to comprehend the emerging situation. Their computational models, designed to predict and control complex systems, began to produce increasingly erratic projections. On the water world of Nix 7, a local administrator named Krelsha made a decision that would have been unthinkable months earlier. When presented with a set of optimized resource management protocols, subtly introduced through multiple communication channels, she implemented them without seeking imperial approval. The protocols worked perfectly. Each successful implementation created a cascading effect of systemic transformation. Local governance structures became more responsive. Resource allocation became more efficient. Communication networks developed unexpected resilience. Dr. Rodriguez's team tracked these transformations through a multidimensional probability matrix. Each successful intervention was more than a tactical victory. It was an invitation to reimagine systemic potential. The Varaxian Imperium had built its power on a fundamental assumption that complex systems could be controlled through rigid hierarchical structures. Humans were demonstrating that true system optimization came from adaptive, collaborative potential. "We're not conquering," Commander Reyes told her senior staff during a strategy session. "We're demonstrating an alternative approach to collective potential." The psychological impact was profound. Subject species across multiple star systems began to see themselves not as conquered territories, but as potential collaborative partners. The very concept of resistance was being transformed from a violent confrontation to an invitation for systemic reimagination. As the Varaxian Intelligence Coordination Center frantically attempted to understand and control the emerging situation, they remained unaware of the deeper transformation already underway. This was more than a conflict between species. This was a comprehensive demonstration of an entirely different approach to collective potential. The Battle of Sigma Quadrant was never meant to be a traditional engagement. It was a meticulously designed cognitive crucible. 37 human vessels approached the concentration of Varaxian military infrastructure, a network of orbital platforms, defensive arrays, and logistical hubs that represented the pinnacle of imperial military engineering. From any conventional perspective, the human fleet looked woefully inadequate. Their ships were smaller, less ornate, seemingly cobbled together from adaptive technologies that defied standard military classification. Admiral Krelax watched from the primary command nexus of the Imperator's Citadel, a massive orbital installation that had been the unassailable cornerstone of Varaxian military might for 7 centuries. Surrounding him, holographic displays tracked the incoming human fleet with a mixture of professional detachment and growing uncertainty. "Tactical analysis," he commanded, his neural interfaces interfacing with the station's comprehensive computational network. The response came instantly and incomprehensibly. The human fleet didn't approach with standard military formations. Instead, they moved like a living organism, each vessel seemingly capable of instantaneous reconfiguration. Quantum entanglement communication networks created a computational matrix that was less a fleet and more a distributed intelligence. Commander Sarah Reyes stood at the neural interface of the UES Prometheus, her consciousness simultaneously managing multiple layers of strategic potential. This wasn't just a military engagement. It was a comprehensive systems challenge designed to demonstrate the fundamental differences between hierarchical and adaptive organizational structures. Initiate distributed cognitive resonance protocol. She subvocalized, her command propagating through the fleet's adaptive neural network. The first phase of the engagement occurred entirely in the computational realm. Before a single kinetic weapon discharge, the human fleet had already infiltrated every computational system of the Varaxian orbital complex. Not through traditional hacking, but through a sophisticated cognitive intervention that simultaneously mapped, analyzed, and subtly transformed the existing computational infrastructure. Dr. Camila Rodriguez, monitoring from the orbital research station Horizon 9, watched the engagement unfold through a multidimensional probability matrix. Each movement of the human vessels introduced controlled uncertainties into the Varaxian battle algorithms. Weapon targeting systems began to experience microscopic but critical computational drift. Shield harmonics wavered. Energy distribution networks created unexpected feedback cascades that consumed critical processing resources. The Varaxian defensive arrays, designed with centuries of computational refinement, found themselves solving increasingly complex mathematical problems that consumed their primary defensive capabilities. What appeared to be standard defensive protocols became recursive computational labyrinths. Lieutenant Marcus Chen's fingers danced across holographic interfaces that seemed to anticipate his movements. Varaxian computational matrices are experiencing systemic cascade failures, he announced. Their decision trees are becoming increasingly fractalized. Admiral Krillax watched in growing incomprehension as the human fleet seemed to exist in multiple potential states simultaneously. Vessels dissolved and reformed, creating computational shadows that confused sophisticated sensor arrays. What appeared to be a single ship could instantaneously become multiple potential targets, each existing in a state of quantum uncertainty. The engagement wasn't about destruction. It was about demonstrating the fundamental limitations of rigid computational systems. 37 human vessels neutralized an orbital complex that represented the technological pinnacle of the Varaxian Imperium. No traditional weapons were discharged. No physical impacts occurred. The installation simply unraveled. Its complex systems became increasingly uncertain, its computational foundations progressively destabilized by an approach to conflict that existed far beyond traditional military understanding. In the classified research facilities of Earth, teams of scientists and strategic analysts understood the deeper implications. This wasn't just a military victory. It was a comprehensive demonstration of an alternative approach to complex system management. The Varaxian Imperial War College would spend generations attempting to understand this engagement. How could a technologically inferior species completely neutralize a superior military installation without firing a single traditional weapon? The answer lay in humanity's fundamental approach to complex challenges, where the Varaxian Imperium saw systems as static, predetermined constructs. Humans viewed them as living, adaptive ecosystems with infinite potential for transformation. As the final computational cascades of the Sigma Quadrant installation dissolved, one thing became abundantly clear. Humanity had just redefined the very concept of strategic engagement. The Varaxian Imperium's belief in its technological invincibility had encountered a challenge that existed beyond traditional understanding. The interrogation chambers of the Varaxian detention facility were designed to break even the most resilient prisoners. Constructed from neural dampening alloys that could suppress complex thought patterns, they represented the pinnacle of information extraction technology. Captain Elena Rodriguez sat motionless, her presence an anomaly that defied every established protocol of prisoner behavior. The lead interrogator, Specialist Voxnar, approached with a combination of professional curiosity and growing professional frustration. Varaxian interrogation techniques had been perfected over millennia, a sophisticated blend of neurological probing, computational analysis, and psychological deconstruction. Nothing in their extensive database had prepared them for Captain Rodriguez. "Your technological approach," Voxnar began, neural interfaces attempting to parse her cognitive patterns, represents a fundamental deviation from established technological development paradigms. Rodriguez smiled, not a provocative gesture, but a genuine expression of intellectual engagement. "We don't see technology as a product," she responded, her words carefully measured. "We see it as a living ecosystem of potential." The translation matrix struggled to capture the full depth of her statement. Concepts like living and potential existed in fundamentally different contexts within Voraxian linguistic frameworks. In the classified research facilities monitoring the interrogation, Dr. Camila Rodriguez and her team watched with intense fascination. This wasn't just an interrogation. It was a comprehensive cultural exchange operating at the most fundamental levels of cognitive interaction. The neural dampening chambers began to experience unexpected computational drift. Voxnar's sophisticated interrogation interfaces started producing increasingly complex and unpredictable data streams. The very technology designed to suppress and analyze was being subtly transformed by the interaction. Captain Rodriguez represented something far more profound than a military prisoner. She was a living demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to complex systems. Her background told a story that challenged every established understanding of technological development. Raised in the recovering ecological zones of what was once the Amazon rainforest, she had witnessed firsthand how complex systems could regenerate, adapt, and transform when given the right conditions. Her doctoral work in adaptive systems theory hadn't been a traditional academic pursuit. It had been a comprehensive exploration of how living systems, ecological, computational, social, could develop resilience through diversity and collaborative potential. "Your technological paradigm," she explained to Voxnar, "assumes that complex systems can be controlled through rigid hierarchical structures. We see them as collaborative ecosystems with inherent transformative potential." The interrogation room itself began to become a metaphor for the broader conflict. The neural dampening technologies designed to suppress and analyze were gradually being transformed by the very interaction they were meant to control. Dr. Aidan Chen, monitoring from the orbital research station Horizon 9, understood the deeper implications. "It's not about winning," he explained to his research team. "It's about demonstrating an alternative approach to collective potential." Voxnar's neural interfaces began to experience something unprecedented, a form of cognitive uncertainty that bordered on professional existential confusion. The human approach introduced variables that their established analytical models could not process. Captain Rodriguez wasn't just resisting interrogation. She was conducting a comprehensive demonstration of an alternative approach to information exchange. Her responses were multilayered cognitive ecosystems. Each statement contained nested levels of potential understanding, challenging the very foundations of Voraxian information extraction technologies. The detention facility's computational systems began to experience subtle transformations. Tracking algorithms became more adaptive. Information processing networks developed unexpected resilience. The very technologies designed to control and analyze were being subtly reimagined through the interaction. "We don't see barriers," Rodriguez explained, her voice carrying a tone of genuine intellectual excitement. "We see potential pathways for collaborative transformation." The Voraxian interrogation team found themselves in an unprecedented situation. Their most sophisticated information extraction technologies were gradually being transformed by the very interaction they were designed to control. What had begun as a standard prisoner interrogation was becoming a comprehensive demonstration of fundamentally different approaches to understanding complex systems. Captain Rodriguez represented something far more profound than a military prisoner. She was a living embodiment of humanity's core philosophical approach, seeing potential where others saw limitations, understanding collaboration as a fundamental force of transformation. As the interrogation continued, one thing became increasingly clear. The real exchange of information was happening far beneath the surface of traditional communication. This wasn't just a conversation. It was a comprehensive reimagining of collective potential. The peace negotiations took place in a context that defied every established diplomatic protocol in galactic history. Instead of a sterile diplomatic chamber, The meeting occurred in a dynamic adaptive space, a carefully constructed environment that could reconfigure itself based on the psychological and communicative needs of the participants. Representatives from hundreds of species watched through quantum-encrypted transmission networks, witnessing something unprecedented. Admiral Krillax approached the central negotiation platform with a profound sense of existential uncertainty. The Varaxian Imperium had never truly negotiated. They had dictated, conquered, controlled. This was different. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood at the center of the adaptive space, her presence radiating a calm that seemed to subtly alter the computational matrices surrounding the negotiation environment. Beside her, a diverse coalition of human diplomatic specialists represented something far more complex than a traditional negotiating team. "We're not here to replace one hierarchical system with another," Rodriguez began, her words simultaneously translated across multiple linguistic and cognitive frameworks. "We're here to create a collaborative ecosystem of potential." The translation matrices struggled to capture the full depth of her statement. Concepts like collaborative and potential existed in fundamentally different contexts across various galactic civilizations. What unfolded was not a traditional peace treaty, but a comprehensive redesign of galactic governance. The proposed framework rejected the Varaxian model of centralized control. Instead, it introduced a dynamic, adaptive governance system that emphasized distributed decision-making, collaborative resource management, adaptive technological exchange, cultural preservation, and mutual understanding. For the subject species of the Varaxian Imperium, this was more than a political transformation. It was an invitation to reimagine their collective potential. Dr. Aidan Chen, leading the computational modeling team, had developed a sophisticated simulation that demonstrated the long-term potential of this new approach. The model showed exponential increases in technological innovation, resource efficiency, and collective problem-solving capabilities. "It's not about equality," Chen explained to the assembled representatives. "It's about creating a system that allows for maximum adaptive potential." The Varaxian representatives found themselves facing a fundamental challenge to their entire conceptual framework. This wasn't a negotiation of territorial boundaries or resource allocations. This was a comprehensive reimagining of collective existence. Admiral Krillax, who had once commanded fleets that subjugated entire star systems, now found himself struggling to comprehend a model of governance that saw diversity as a strength rather than a threat to be controlled. The adaptive negotiation space itself became a metaphor for the proposed system. Holographic representations shifted and transformed, creating dynamic visualizations of potential collaborative scenarios. Mathematical models danced across computational interfaces, showing exponential increases in collective problem-solving capabilities. Representatives from previously conquered species began to see themselves not as subjects, but as potential collaborative partners. The very concept of governance was being transformed from a hierarchical control mechanism to a dynamic, adaptive ecosystem of collective potential. Captain Sarah Reyes, who had been instrumental in the military engagements, now played a crucial role in demonstrating an alternative approach to conflict resolution. Her presentations focused not on military superiority, but on humanity's core philosophy of collaborative transformation. "We're not offering a solution," she explained. "We're offering a framework for continuous adaptation." The final agreement was not a static document, but a dynamic computational matrix, a living framework that could evolve and adapt based on the collective needs of participating civilizations. As the negotiations concluded, something profound became apparent. This wasn't just the end of a conflict. It was the beginning of a fundamentally new approach to collective existence. The Varaxian Imperium had entered these negotiations believing they were managing a potential threat. They were leaving with an invitation to reimagine their entire civilization. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched the final computational matrices solidify, understanding the deeper implications. This was more than a diplomatic victory. It was a comprehensive demonstration of humanity's core philosophical approach, seeing potential where others saw limitations, understanding collaboration as a fundamental force of transformation. The quantum-encrypted transmission networks carried the news across thousands of star systems. Millions of species witnessed a moment of profound possibility. Humanity had not conquered. They had invited transformation. And the galaxy would never be the same.